Hello guys, and now we are in the second game of the bishop pair advantage series, and in this game the white player is Arneson and the black player is Kasparov, and it is played in Moscow 1980. And let's see how Kasparov uses his bishop pair advantage. It's a Sicilian opening: e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop e2, e5, knight b3, bishop e7, bishop g5, bishop e6, bishop takes f6. Here, here instead of bishop takes f6, castles and castles, and then bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then queen d3, and now knight c6, knight d5, bishop g5, rook fd1 was later suggested as a correct move order. The point is that black cannot play bishop knight e7. Because the d6 pawn is weak. But white played first bishop takes f6, then bishop takes f6, then queen d3, then knight c6, then knight d5, then bishop g5, castle shot. Instead of short castles, here rook d1 was better, and it prevents black's liberating move. So king is knight e7. Now after knight takes e7, queen takes e7, rook fd1, rook d8, rook d8, and here white plays knight a5, and here c4 was better to stop d5, and castle shot. Here instead, if black would have played d5 before castling, it would have been premature because white will play next queen b3, and after knight c4, and now white played the opening without aggression. Moreover, he did not even attempt to fight for an advantage. Perhaps he respected young Kasparov, who even in 1980 was already close to the world's elite. White intends after knight b6 to establish a blockade on d5. Black prevents it, of course, opening the position for the bishop pair. Here white missed c4. It was clear that white would not play it move. White would not play it move later, and here after knight c4, d5, after d takes d5, and if at all black would have played knight takes e5 here, then there is bishop c8, and it will be followed by d takes e4, and it is clearly in black's favor. But so white took on d5, and after rook takes d5, queen f3, rook fd8. Black's strategy is clear here. He has fully activated his troops. Potential exchanges will not do him any harm. His bishop pair will dominate in the endgame. Rook takes d5, bishop takes d5, queen f5, b5. With the bishop pair expanding is a good idea. Knight e3, bishop b7, rook d1, rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, g6, making space for the king and continuing the correct strategy, putting pawns on the light squares. This will restrict both the white's minor pieces. Queen d3, queen b4, queen d7, queen e7. White's counter was good and black must retreat. Queen d3, e4. Black's bishop does nothing on the long diagonal. It is therefore better to close it, gaining more space. Queen d2. And now, due to white's careless play, he was forced to switch to defense. Black dominates with two ultra powerful bishops. His next plan could be connected with using his majority on the king side. Though advancing pawns would leave the king unprotected, so it is natural to exchange queens before expanding. Kasparov plays pragmatically, exchanging material doesn't worry him. Queen d8, queen takes d8, bishop takes d8, c3. And c3 is a good move. White vacates the c2 square to activate his minor pieces. King g7, king g7, and then a4. Here f5 was more precise. Black should not voluntarily choose the longer path to the center for the king. If possible, the king gets there faster using the light squared diagonal. Moreover, the f pawn would be sure to advance anyway. But Kasparov plays king g7, a4, and a4 once again is a good move. Whites want to create weak pawn in black's camp and to reduce material. Exchanging material will improve his chances of a draw. B takes a4. And this is the only move for a win. It is extremely important for black to keep at least one queenside pawn. If at all king f6 was played, then ab5, bishop e2 would lead to elimination of the b5 pawn. If black plays bishop c6 here, then after the exchange, after the bishop takes the pawn, it would lead to the same structure, but the bishop can be exposed. White would be able to launch the pawns with the tempo. So it was correct to play b takes a4, and after bishop takes a4, f5, g3, king f6, h4. With his last two moves, white is ready to parry black's expansion on the king side. His strategy remains the same, exchanging as many pawns as possible, then possibly sacrificing the knight for the opponent's pawn would lead to a draw. Bishop c8, and now overprotecting the f5 pawn and liberating the king for action. Bishop d1, the bishop wants to target a6, h6, bishop e2, a5, bishop b5, king e5, knight c4 check. White wants to disturb the king, but it is heading to queen side anyway. King d5, knight e3 check, king c5, bishop e8, and that was the idea. It looks like black took risk and will lose a pawn on the king side. However, Kasparov calculated correctly. g5, h5, h5, bishop g6, f4, gf4, gf4, knight g2, and now king c4. And here f3 would save material, but knight e3 and white establishes a barrier here. It was correct to play king c4. Now after knight takes f4, and if at all bishop f7 check is played, then king d3, knight takes f4 check, king c2, b3, king takes c3 is much better for black, but white should still go for it. The bishop pair is more dangerous with passed pawns on the board. But white goes for the material. After king b3, bishop takes e4, king takes b2, bishop c6, and if at all this is played, c4 is played, then a4, the pawn march begins and it cannot be stopped. So the pawn must be stopped now, and after king takes c3 and king f1, here white has stopped the pawn and ready to bring the knight and king over. Black must watch white's idea to sacrifice the knight for the pawn. Black's first task is to keep the white king and knight far away from the pawn. King d2, and this is the only brilliant move leading to the win. Bishop b5, bishop f5, and knight d5, and knight d5 was a mistake, and bishop c6 was better, and bishop d3, and now finally black reaches the win. One of the important properties of the bishop pair is the ability to exchange one of the bishops easily. After bishop takes d3, king takes d3, king e1, a4, the pawn is unstoppable now. King d1, a3, king c1, king c4, knight e3 check, king b3, f4, bishop c7, king b1, a2 check, and after king a1, bishop a5, and here bishop takes f4 would be a blunder, because after knight c4 it is a draw. So be careful guys, do not go for material. Bishop a5 and knight d5, bishop d2, and white resigned, and white's docile play in the opening was punished. The result was a problematic endgame for white. It is no wonder the legendary Kasparov posed so many problems. The outcome was fair. So finally the game would finish like this. After f6, then it is a mate, a beautiful mate. So I think this game would have been very illustrative, guys. I'll meet you in the next game. Thank you all.